Welcome everybody to our session on what's Libki all about. We are going to dive deep into how Libki works and give you the overview and have some developers on our team come and chat about it. We will have a Q&A and a chat set up so you can ask questions as it goes on. And Adam's actually going to go ahead and do a little brief introduction.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today and listening to us talk about what makes Libkey so great. With me today is Elise, who you have already heard from, Ian, who is our head of special projects, and Kyle, who is our director of development, and also the person who wrote the original Libkey software. Jessie will be with us virtually. She's not here today, but she did kindly record a demo for us that we're going to show you in a few minutes. So real quickly, what is Libkey and why is it so great? Libkey is a free open source cross-platform PC reservation, print, booking, and time management system that's designed to allow time-limited access to computers on a network. Libkey is ideally suited for use in locations where a controlled computing environment is paramount, such as public access systems, libraries, school computer laboratories, and more. Yeah, let's go ahead and show the demo and then.
All right, sounds good. We're going to get that going in just a second.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we'll start the presentation with the public interface of the Libkey system. What we're looking at right now is the Libkey reservations, or the public interface, where you can show available clients for your patrons and users. You'll notice right at the top here, it will show us all of the locations. So if you are a system that you may have multiple rooms or multiple locations, you'll notice that you can separate this out to show, for example, a children's room or a computer lab. What's nice about this interface is you can have this displayed perhaps on a monitor in your lobby, or you can have this as a kiosk where your users can come up and they can make a reservation for the system. And we'll get into this a little bit more when we're in the administration side. But what Libkey allows you to do is to come in and make a reservation for the system. Once the user clicks on the available computer, they can come in here, enter their username and password. This is a connection directly from your Koha ILS system, where they can log in with the same credentials that they would log in for either the OPAC or Discovery. You'll notice at the top, I can also select the reservation time. These are system settings that you can set in your Libkey admin to allow for that reservation. So what we'll do here is we'll enter in our username and password, make the reservation, and you'll see at the top, it tells me that success, the reservation has been created, and when that will be started. Now you do have options. With reservations, you can have them as first come, first serve, meaning that if there's an open computer, the patron can walk in and sit down. You can have it as reservation for everything, meaning they must reserve a computer before they sit down at the computer. And then the third option, which would be a hybrid, which means maybe all of the computers are filled and then they can get on a waiting list for a reservation. Now from this public interface, you'll notice at the top right-hand corner, I have a login button. Now this is an excellent way for your users who might have brought in their own computer or mobile device to print something to one of your printers within the system. Libkey has print management, which allows your patrons to print things, as well as staff to manage that information. So what I'm going to do here is enter in my credentials again. And now when I log in, you'll notice that there is a tab here. So again, this would be only for your patrons who brought in their own device. So if you have maybe an individual who brought in a Chromebook or a laptop and they're using it in the library, or a tablet or their mobile phone, this would be a way for them to upload a file and then print it to the system. So here I can come over and browse for a particular file and then select how I would like to print. And these printers will reflect the printers in your library that are set up. So in this case, I'm just going to say monochrome printer, and then I'm going to upload them. Once I upload it, it will tell me the funds that are available for printing. So if I do have money on my account, it will populate there. And then down below, you'll be able to see the status. So from here, I can see the print manager, I can see the status, I can see, how it's been uploaded, when it was created. I can change the printer at this point. So if I do want to change to, let's say, color, I can do that. It will show me the cost. You will notice if I select color, I will then see the option for the cost to go up. So now you can see it's 15 cents. Once I'm done and I'm ready to go, I can hit that print button. It tells us that the job will be released to the printer immediately. Are you sure you want to do this? I come through, hit OK, and now our print job has been released for printing. You will notice that once we hit that OK, my funds have decreased. So I am now down to $21.65. So again, this is the public interface for your users. One, if they're making reservations, or two, if they've brought their own device into the library and they want to print. Now, of course, as Kyle talked about in the beginning with the history of Libki, Libki is a client manager. So whether the Libki client is on your individual computers in the computer lab or a reference area or a children's area, they will be able to print directly from those library computers for Libki. Okay, let's look at administration now. This is where your staff will log in to the administration to review users, look at clients, make reservations, and manage any of those prints that are coming through. The first thing they will see here is, of course, their users. Since Libki can connect to an ILS, it allows the user to log in with their same username and password, making it very easy to jump on a Libki if they do have a account within your ILS. So for those of you using Koha, we can set that directly up to your Libki system, making it very easy for your users. You'll notice as I hover over the user list here, I have 4 buttons. The first is to edit. This will show me the details. I can adjust the category, make or add minutes. I can adjust funds. So if they come in to give us $5 to add to their account, I can bump that up to $15, make any type of notes, and update the user. If I'm editing, you'll notice I also have a second tab. This is our roles tab. Now it's very easy. So, think about in Koha where we have multiple permissions that you can set. With Libki, you have 2. You have administrator and super administrator. With administrator, this will be your frontline staff. Anyone who is working or needing to log into Libki to adjust reservations or users or clients, they will need administrator access. For those who want to look at history or logs or update settings in Libki, they would also need super administrator that would provide them access to get into administration. The second option you'll see here is, of course, the password. This gives the option to reset or change that password for the user. The second one you'll see here is troublemaker. You notice if I click that in the upper right-hand corner, it tells me that the troublemaker status has been updated. Think of troublemaker as a way to quickly flag an account. So if you catch them looking at something they shouldn't be, or if they're abusing their privilege, they're using another person's card, you can mark them as a troublemaker. Our last option here is to delete, and that will remove the user from the system. Now let me draw your attention up to the right-hand side of the screen. Here you'll see 4 buttons. The first is to refresh. Libki by default refreshes this list every 30 seconds. So if a new user is created in your Koha system, within those 30 seconds, they will automatically be updated in Libki. If I hit that refresh button, it will automatically refresh or look quicker than those 30 seconds. The next thing you'll see here is the option to add a new user. If you want to add a new user here, this allows you to enter the username, password, and of course, you'll see that default allotment of time within the system. The next button you'll see is for a guest. This allows you to create a one-off guest user account. You'll notice that the username and password has already been entered along with the default allotment for guest users, which if you notice, it's 50 minutes versus what we saw with a new user, which was 90. When we get into administration, I'll show you the system preferences essentially, which allow you to update this information. From here, you can print this off and hand that little slip to your patron. The next thing you'll see here, of course, is the multiple guests. And this is really great if, maybe you have snowbirds or just an area where you might get some high turnover for guests. This gives you the ability to view and print off guest passes. So you can set the highest guest account created. So this means I have 23 other ones in the system. And then, of course, the number of counts created. So I would just want to print off 20. If I hit that view and print, this gives me a nice little page where I can send it to the printer. And then, of course, cut these out to hand off to my users. These can also be customized as to what they see here and what the access is. You can also search for users. So if somebody comes up and they want to make a change to their account or add money, you'll notice here if I start typing, I typed Earl, this allows me to view that account where I can jump right in. The next tab you'll see here is clients. This is where staff will be able to manage all of the clients in the system. You'll see across the top, I have a couple different tabs. All, which shows me all the clients within our system. Children's room, which shows me just the clients within the children's room. Computer lab, which shows me again, just those computer lab clients. And then of course, a few others for our main floor and or office. If we come back to children's room, let's talk about some of the things that you'll see in here if you need to make modifications or adjustments. The first thing is the ability to modify time. So if I select that for CR1, which is the first computer in our children's room, this allows me to add a positive or decrease an amount of time to that particular computer. I can also add that time to the daily allotment, and that will take effect when the user is currently logged in at. I can also come in and make a reservation. So we just saw earlier how we would go in and make a reservation on the public side. This would allow staff to come in, add the username, set the date and time, and make that reservation. Staff can also cancel reservations from the back end. So if for some reason someone comes up and says, hey, I cannot make it, I have to go home and pick up my child, this allows the staff member to come in and make and cancel that reservation. They'll also see some options here to lock or unlock the client, log out from the client, toggle the status back and forth, which would either suspend the client or take it offline. They can delete or remove the client from the list. Maybe the computer was completely broken and it was being replaced. You can completely remove it or delete it from the system. And then of course, the last two here, which allow you to restart the client or turn it off. So again, with Libki installed, you can run that functionality from the administration side. You'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, I still have those quick actions where I can create a new user, guest, or multi-guest from this view. And then right below, I can also restart every client or turn all clients off. So again, just giving that batch feature. You'll also notice a search bar underneath where I can search for a specific in the system. So if I was looking for something specific, I can do that as well. The next tab we'll see here is reservations. So this allows staff to view all of the reservations that are currently active in the system, where they can see that, manage it, and update that information. The final tab they'll see here is the prints. So if you have Libki print management set up, this is where you would be able to see that information. Now, I will be showing you in your system settings how you can customize some of this information, but this is where your staff will be able to manage any of those print interactions that your patrons are sending to the printer. Again, I just want to draw your attention to the top. You'll notice those quick buttons are there for the new users, new guests, and multiple guests. Okay, let's now take a look at our drop-down menu up top for the more settings. This is where I'm going to define things like looking at statistics, checking, what happened at which computer or client in the system, defining my closing hours, looking at logs for troubleshooting. And then of course, finally, I'll hit all of those settings that you have for customizing Libki. So the first thing we have is history. This is where I can see essentially the name, the username of the individual logged in, the client, something that may have happened. Did I modify the time, adjust a login, update a password, and then of course that timestamp. You'll notice over here, I can also search. So if I was looking for a particular client or username, I could start typing that in and view that information. The next drop down is my statistics. This is where I will be able to do my who, what, when, and where. So you'll notice I have 3 tabs on the left-hand side, one for location, one for client, and one for reservations. What this will allow me to do is run my monthly stats. So now I can see what the daily usage was by location. So it'll tell me that and what was used each day. I can do the same thing for my client, which would tell me the client, the location, and the total. And then of course, reservations. If you are using reservations, you'll be able to come in here and view all of that information. The next thing we'll define is your closing hours. So again, when we're setting up your Libki system, we want it to reflect all of the policies and procedures at your library. So the first thing you'll do is you'll set your closing hours. This allows you to define, your Monday through Sunday hours. And then you also have options to update specific or earlier closing times in different locations. So for example here, I don't have anything different for children's, but for the computer lab, we have them closing about 15 minutes earlier. That way we can wipe down, close out the computer lab before we need to get everybody else out of the library for closing. So this just gives you a little bit of flexibility if you have specific areas that you want to update. You also have options down below to update specific dates where you might be closing a little earlier, whether maybe you have a speaker coming or maybe it's a staff day and you're closing the library for a staff day. This allows you to actually come in. We can select that date and time and then select the time that we are closing early within the system. So again, just gives you a little bit of flexibility. You can add that information in and then it will add it to that list. The next thing we'll take a look at is our logs. So for those of you that are using Koha, we can go into our logs and look at things when a user was removed or deleted, or when a report was deleted, or maybe when a cron job ran within the system. This is what Libki logs is allowing us to do. You'll notice here we can see when the cron job started, finished within the system. And of course, you have that search box up there. So for any administrators, this is good for troubleshooting if you want to identify if a job has run within the system. Next, let's take a look at our settings. So let's get into the fun stuff. How are we going to set everything up within your Libki client? So the first thing you'll see here is your time settings. This is where I'm going to come in and essentially identify what my users have access to and what my guests have access to. So you'll notice I have a default allowance per day, which is 90 minutes. And then I also have default time allowance per session. So in essence here, you could have 3 sessions at 30 minutes for a total of 90. You'll notice I also have separate ones for guests. So they can have 225 for a total of 50 minutes. Down below, you do have options. If the box is checked for time allowance by location, that means each location will have its own time allowance shared only between those clients. So again, maybe for a computer lab or something specific, you can set that up. And then of course, down below, you can choose your date display format, and then of course, 12 or 24 hour. Once you've defined your time settings, then we'll look at automatic time extensions. This takes into play when the user is logged in. They're going to see that little Libki client at the bottom corner of the computer. And then this gives you options to automatically increase a user's time for a session, give them notifications, letting them know that there's X amount of minutes remaining, and then of course, giving the option to extend. So in this case, you'll see you can increase by 15 minutes. It will give them a warning at 5 minutes, and then they can't extend if the user client is reserved. So this gives them some options. You'll also see here when extending the time, you can say don't take minutes from the daily allotment or take minutes from the daily allotment. The next thing you'll see here is client behavior. This is where we are able to come in and select how we want reservations done. I mentioned this a little bit when we were looking at that public reservation interface, and this allows us to say either first come, first serve, meaning a patron, walks in, there's an open computer, they sit down, log in, and there they go. The second option means reservation only. That means every individual that comes in needs to make a reservation on the computer and then log in. And then the third is like a hybrid, right? First come, first serve. And that gives them the option to come in, they see an open client, use it, or maybe they place a reservation on one computer and then they can go log in. I think a great example, I had somebody share this in a demo that we were doing training, and they said that, we have a kiosk on the bottom floor, but our library is multi-floors, so they can say, I want to reserve a computer on the third floor. That gives them enough time to get in, walk in, and find that client. Below, you'll see options for notifications. So time notification frequency, warning thresholds, just letting them know that what they have left per session. And then, of course, options for inactivity. So if it will automatically log it out after X amount of minutes of inactivity. And then, of course, options for session pausing. Now, I like this a lot because, you think about they may be sitting at the computer and either they need to go grab an item from the shelf or run to the bathroom, whatever it may be. This allows them to lock the client so they can get up and walk away. One thing to remember is when it's locked, the session minutes will continue to count down, but it does give them a little freedom to go grab something or run to the bathroom. Below, you'll see a couple more preferences that allow for passwordless mode, which is, if it's enabled, allows passwords not to be checked for client logins. And then you have client registration delay. So again, that gives them X amount of time to get to that client to log in before the reservation moves on. And then once you have that set up, I am going to walk over and jump to our reservations settings as these tie in. So this allows the patron to have some time for his or her reservation before it's canceled. Minimum reservation time required, you can set if it's left blank. The default is a minute. And then, of course, you have options to set times. You also have the display of the status for the reservation, and that means when the Libki client is reserved and waiting, it will display the reservation status of the person it is waiting for. So you can set either username, first and last, anonymous, or disabled. Okay, now let's jump into client login banners. This is where you can define and customize what shows to the user when they log in. So you can see, of course, we're showing off our Libki banner, but you can essentially set a top banner and a lower banner or a bottom banner. You can direct that URL right to the image. Maybe you're hosting it on your website or a GitLab account. And then, of course, you do have a center logo also, which allows you to identify that information. So this allows you to brand your clients' systems so when they see your information when they log in. Next, we have our client power options. So this is where we're defining how things are shut off or suspended. You can choose the action for automatic shutdown and then turn off button in the system. We will, of course, work through all of these options with you when we're setting up your Libki instance with your library. And then, of course, you also have client power on settings, and that's just when enabled for those target computers. We'll work with you to set that up. And then finally, the last things you'll see down here is, of course, for the setup of your system. And again, Kyle and Ian will be working with our partner libraries to make sure that all of these setups are correct on your system, which again, I'm going to jump over next to the ILS integration, because this is where we are going to connect directly to your Koha ILS via SIP. So we will set up that SIP configuration for you. Libki does have LDAP configuration if your library is using LDAP. As far as customizations go, you can add custom JavaScript to your Libkey administration interface as well as your public interface. So for those of you, again, using Koha, you can make JavaScript updates in the system preferences. This gives you that same option to make some customizations. The next thing we'll see here is data retention. So when we were talking about earlier, the history and the logs, this decides how long and if data will ever be anonymized or if data will be kept indefinitely. So we can do history anonymization and history retention. And then, of course, clearing out inactive users. So again, we'll work with you to set this up. The same thing goes for your print job retention. If you want to keep the print jobs for, let's say, a day, you can set that up within the system. The same thing goes for your logs. It will default to 0 and all logs will be removed nightly, or you can retain them for as long as needed. Now let's talk about those guest passes. So we saw when we were looking at guest passes earlier, ours allowed us to just create 20 passes at a time. This is where I'm setting all of that up. So I can create a prefix, maybe it's guest, maybe you call them something else. You can also customize the number that you want to print. So maybe I just wanted to do 15 at a time. I can update my label. Perhaps this is my library name. Maybe you want to change it to something else besides computer guest pass. All of this can be customized. You do have a template here where you can use template toolkit syntax, which is very similar to our notices and slips in Koha to customize that information. And you can do that also for the guest pass CSS. So if you wanted to add in just a little CSS, change the font or the spacing, you can absolutely do that. Next, we'll talk about print management. So if you are connecting printers to your Libkey system for print management, this is where we will connect any of those printers that are available. So we saw on the option when in the beginning where I was talking about the availability, if a user brought in their own computer or wanted to print from their phone, they could. We saw these options pop up. Again, if the patron was printing from the Libkey client at one of your computers or the computer lab, they would see these options to print. Again, our great team here at Bywater will help set this up during the implementation phases. Next, I'll jump into terms and services. This can be set to match your policy and procedures for your library, letting you define terms of service text and then any additional details. And then this text will display when the show details button is clicked within the system. Now for user settings, again, bringing in this information from your Koha ILS, you can define categories. This uses the YAML syntax. We will help you again set this up during the implementation phases. And this ties in with your advanced settings. So this just gives you a little more flexibility. In this case, the example that we have here is maybe we have just like a kiosk when you walk into the library or maybe in the lobby, that's like a quick 15-minute computer. Maybe somebody just needs to check their emails or they want to print out driving directions, whatever it may be. This allows them to come in. They can quickly use that information. It's 15 minutes versus what we have, for our regular allotment or guest pass allotment within the system. And then, of course, last but not least, we have our API keys. And again, this is how we're connecting to those printers within the system. And our fantastic team here at Bywater will work with you to set all of that up. Now, last but not least, before I turn it over to Ian to talk a little bit about implementation, you will notice in the upper left-hand corner, you do have language options. So there are options to switch over for staff that might be multilingual. Okay, I am going to pause now and I am going to pass it over to my colleague Ian to talk a little bit about Libkey here at Bywater Solutions implementation, and then we will open it up for questions and answers.
There we go. Hi, I'm Ian. I am the head of special projects here at Bywater Solutions, of which Libkey is one. So as far as a Libkey implementation process goes, when a partner library has decided that they would like to have Libkey as supported by Bywater, We get the Libkey server component up and running within our own cloud. We get the necessary client and print driver and other files set out to the partners to begin setting up. This does require some IT involvement, typically, someone who can work on those computers to do installations. A lot of times, libraries have computers deep frozen or another similar sort of refreshing system in place so that computers don't get weird over time. We've all seen that happen, I think. This also helps to better ensure patron privacy. So one of the sort of assumptions with Libkey is that you have a system like this in place. When a person's reservation is complete, they log out. It resets the computer to a default state, so you don't have any files lingering around. You're not seeing browsing history. It helps to ensure privacy that way. So we'll work with a partner library to get all those things configured and set up. If there is print management involved, that's another thing that we help to facilitate. Again, working with the library and any other IT organizations that are sort of in the ecosystem to make that happen. We may find that there are features that need to be developed, and we can work with libraries to figure out the specifications for what those features are and sort of what the scope and costs of a development project like that would be. And of course, we're always doing bug fixes and support processing for Libkey through the usual Bywater support channels. So if you find bugs, if you're having an issue, if it's just being weird today, you can put in a ticket and we will go through the process of figuring out what's going on and how to make it behave itself. So, sorry, I have the question and answer open here. I'm trying to keep on top of that. I know my colleagues are also answering that. I am going to move on a little bit into sort of what the immediate future of Libkey is, sort of what we're looking at in the next bit of a threshold. So we're really excited to start doing more with the Libkey community and getting out there and helping to bolster community documentation, support, engagement, really sort of rallying around this. Because I'm sorry, I was a little bit late, but Libkey is unique in the market. There aren't other open source tools doing this, and that's pretty cool because open source is awesome, and you should have choices that allow you to, choose open source if you want to. So we want to make sure that it is a choice that is going to work for as many libraries as possible. We're also looking at our own internal deployment processes and these sorts of things to make getting Libkey up and running super fast and efficient so that we can snap and there you go. You've got your system ready to go, or as close to snapping one's fingers as one can imagine. And of course, I think what the part we're really looking forward to is the additional features that we are looking at adding to Libkey the next bit. So as we saw in some of the Q&A, support for non-PDF web printing is one of the ones really high on our list. Not everyone is going to be comfortable turning their Word document into a PDF on their own. So we're looking at ways that we can easily make that happen. There's technical issues behind that, but there are also technical solutions. So that is one of the ones that we want to overcome quickly. We're also looking at, we've talked a little bit there, we have cash can be exchanged. You can do these manual processes. The JMX system is supported. Other coin ops could be supported as well, but there's also the cards e-commerce kind of approach. Not everyone has cash money on them anymore, but a lot of folks will have, say, Apple Pay or Google Pay or the debit card. So being able to support those kind of payment options would be a real boon for Libkey. So we're looking at how we can make that happen as well. One of the features that we've had requested from a lot of academic institutions comes down to location hierarchies. So being able to have a hierarchy of locations, so you can say, okay, this is how it's going to behave in this building, except for this floor. This floor is special. We override that, or we have special conditions within this sort of space. So looking at building that out, which would also allow, say, for more multi-building kind of approaches to Libkey, so you could manage across an entire campus or a set of campuses. We are also looking, of course, at more ILS integration components, being able to integrate with, whatever sort of fees and then credit system are available in an ILS. We want to do that in as ILS agnostic way as possible. But keeping in mind that it's the easiest to make Koha integrate with libkey because, again, Koha is open source, and we have some Koha expertise at Bywater. We have some folks who are very well embedded in the community and can make changes if we need to make changes to Koha, or at the very least provide expertise to help us guide how we need to integrate with libkey. Another one I'm looking at, and maybe this is necessary, maybe it's not. I'd love to hear from y'all what you think. We currently don't have a Mac client. We've done some experiments. We've made some progress, but there hasn't been a huge demand for it yet. I'm wondering if that's changed in recent years. And as we do some of the under the hood work and the streamlining of deployments, it may be that we can just produce the Mac client automatically without too much additional overhead. But I feel like making sure that we have all the major distributions of hardware would be really great. I've also looked at Chromebooks. There's My kids have Chromebooks. I would love to be able to help manage their time, and using a system like Libkey would be pretty awesome for that. Also, each your own dog food kind of approach to things. So Chrome OS, cool. I hear it. I will add that to my list right now. That's most of what I wanted to say. I'm really appreciate y'all taking the time to join us today, and I want to hear from y'all. I'd love to learn more. We've been answering the questions. I'm gonna hand it back to Elise as moderator, and we'll go from there. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you to Jessie virtually. Felt like she was here in person. Kyle, did you have anything to add? Kyle is our developer for Libkey, and I just wanted to, since now he is a panelist, just wanted to welcome if he had anything to add.
No, I was asked to give a quick history. I can give like a 2-minute version of that if you're interested.
Maybe like
Because it's basically the story of an awkward 20-something trying not to talk to children. So I started my career at the Crawford County Library System in Northwest Pennsylvania. And occasionally, as an IT person and developer, and occasionally I would have to work the desk, particularly the children's desk, where we had a clipboard and we would write down people's names and when they were supposed to get off the computers, and then you had to go confront people and ask them to get off. And I was far too shy for that. Things have changed, but at that time, I was very shy, and so I went looking for an alternative. It had to be cross-platform. It had to work on Linux and Mac, or Linux and Windows, and it had to be open source. I found something that almost worked, and Libkey is actually kind of a ship of Theseus that came out of that. I replaced every component of the original software until there was none left. It was named Out Cafe, if anyone is curious. It looks like that project has not been active in a very long time. Since then, both the client and the server have had a full rewrite. We've added print management. We've added the print release with JAMX. So it has come a very long way from its humble beginnings as me trying to avoid talking to children.
Well, thank you so much for that brief overview, Kyle. And let's see, so we've been answering some questions in the Q&A. Adam, did you have anything you wanted to add as we're kind of wrapping this up?
Just if anyone wants more information or pricing or anything like that, just contact us at sales@bywatersolutions.com. I also put Ian's email in the chat if anyone wants to follow up with him about things they'd like to see changed in Libkey. I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody so much for attending. We are going to send out the recording of this as well as the video that Jessie did doing the demo. And feel free to share that with your colleagues and anyone else that may be interested. So thank you so much and have a great day, everybody.